Cali X Boxing, and it is Thursday, and what a Thursday it is. Make sure you leave your comments in the comment section as you come through. That way I know who's in the building. Also, as most of you, 90% of you catch this in the archives, and I appreciate all the archive views. But make sure you're leaving your comments below as you're hitting the like button, and as you're subbing, make sure you hit that alert button as well. And as always, man, like I always say this, I always try to open up as to what I'm grateful for, and I'm grateful for the good boxing fans out there that I've been conversing with, especially on this channel. And I'm always humbled to the fact that I have people tuning into this channel to speak boxing with me, because that's what's happening here. And we'll talk about this throughout the channel, because I want to make clear my philosophy, and I also want to make clear who I am, what this channel is about, the mission statement here. And I want to make clear that I'm not a dude on here pretending to be some sort of journalist. I'm not a dude on here speaking above people. We're on the even plateau. We're speaking to each other. I'm not going to be one of those smug dudes talking down to people, and that may get lost in my delivery sometimes as I go off on these spiels. But that's my mission statement here. And we'll speak about that throughout this podcast right here. And we'll also speak about the advice my mom has given me throughout my life is, when things are in shambles, not going your way around you, look at where you're at, deal with the reality of it, and go forward. Do not speak about, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. It's not good for anybody. CY, for sure it's off. It is off. It is off. M. Guadin, appreciate you coming through. In my GGG voice, come on, guys. Let them fight, guys. Come on, this is boxing. My guy, JC, in here. How long are they going to make you keep that ringside reporter emblem right there, by the way, JC? How long was that bet for? How long do you have to rep that ringside reporter right there? Ben is an a-hole just like his dad. The Connor Ben hate is starting already. Exactly, Santiago. Cali, which is your favorite fight of all time? Mine is Sanchez versus Gomez. I have so many of them, man. It's hard. It's hard. I have so many of them. Gotti versus Ward 1 is up there among many other ones. But that's a different show for a different time. Santiago Media says, this is boxing, let's fight, you know, guys. And that's where I'm at with it. And that's what we'll speak about on this channel, is looking out for our own self-interest, looking out for our interests as boxing fans. We don't get on here and speak like promoters, like managers, like network execs, like journalists. We speak as boxing fans. What this channel is and what we're doing here is like dudes sitting around at the barbershop, speaking politically incorrect, speaking about what we want. At the end of the day, my job as a boxing fan, and I've said this and I've been transparent about it from day one, more so since this new channel started, and it's been my mission statement, is I look out for my interests as a boxing fan unashamedly, unabashedly, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I speak as a boxing fan. I'm not going to get on here and speak as a promoter. If you want that, go listen to Eddie Hearn. Go listen to, if you want to hear advisors speak, go listen to Al Heyman. You can't do that because he doesn't give interviews. So go listen to Sam Watson, the intern of the advisor. Go listen to Bob Arum if you want to hear a promoter speak. Go listen to Steven Espinoza, the Weasel, if you want to go hear a network exec speak. Go listen to fighters if you want to hear fighters speak. The issue is all those people tell me that as a boxing fan, I have blind spots as a boxing fan. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I can't possibly know what it takes to deliver a fight, what it's like to be a fighter, what it's like to be a promoter, because I'm not in their shoes. I have blind spots. Well, guess what? I have news for them. They have blind spots because they don't know what it's like to follow this damn sport. My job as a boxing fan is simple. My job requirements as a boxing fan are simple. I pay for the apps. I pay for the subscriptions for the channels, for the networks. Then I show my happy ass up in front of my TV, turn it on Saturday night, and I get entertained. It's my job as a boxing fan. Every once in a while, I go out, get expensive plane tickets, expensive hotel room, expensive fight tickets. The economy's bad, but I didn't get a break on any of that. They didn't feel sorry for me. Pay thousands of dollars, go support my favorite fighters. I used to do it before I had kids. Now, since my kids are grown up and I have more money now, thankfully, I can go out and do it again. Just went to the Canelo fight. Likely going to Chocolatito Estrada in Phoenix in December. I support. I do my job. I pay for the livelihoods of the fighters, of the promoters, of the managers, of the network execs, everybody involved. I do my job at keeping this thing going. And I'm not going to sit on here and act like a journalist and virtue signal and say, oh, the fight should have been canceled. They did the right thing here. They did the right thing. I don't understand. I understand the journalists, where they're coming from, because they're journalists. I get it. Everybody's looking out for their own self-interest, but when boxing fans look out for our own interests, what happens? They shame us. They shame us. We're the only ones who get shamed for looking out for our own interests. They do it to the promoters. Oh, you shouldn't, but it's different. And we all know that. Before I go into a further rant, let me get to some more comments. What's your favorite fight? Oh, I got to that one already. No timetable, just free promotion. Connor on that Benbuterol. Sorry for going off track. Appreciate Chicano coming in. No drama with the little guys, Bam, Chaco, Ronvice, Estrada, JC Martinez. They fight, and that's it. You ever notice how long these English fight cards are? First fight start, main event 7 hours later. And from what I've been told from other American fight fans who go over there to watch the cards, they watch the cards in entirety. The place is almost packed for all these undercard fights. It's not the same here in America. That's what I've been told. That's what I've been told. Thinking of going to that Chocolatito fight in Arizona as well. Hope to see you there. Disappointed that the fight is off, as I am. Good afternoon, Andre Rodriguez. Appreciate you coming through. I can't be mad at Ben's beard implant and not mad at the rest of the world's fake teeth, fake lips, fake tops, and fake trunks. I support Ben with his man beard. Everyone can be frustrated, but it's not virtue signal. It's a matter of their rules, and nobody is exempt from them. I understand where you're coming from, James Burrell. Shout out to you on the surface. On the surface, I get that. There are rules. You got to abide by the rules. My issue is, and this is my issue, there's no consistency from anybody. And the people out there virtue signaling today, there's no way. There's a 0% chance they're going to be able to hold on and be consistent with this going forward. And they know it. They know it. They're virtue signaling right now. And that's why I say they're doing it. There's no way they're going to be able to stay consistent with this. The precedent in the past has been the fight still goes on. And now they think that they're going to set some type of new precedent. Like this is the Grinch Stole Christmas scene when all of a sudden he hears the kids with no Christmas gifts singing and he grows a heart, right? They think since this fight's not going on, that's going to be the precedent going forward. And when this happens in the future, Al Heyman's going to say, oh, the Eddie Hearn card didn't go through. We got to do the same thing. Bob Arum's going to do the same thing. It's not going to happen. And on top of that, the Boxing Writers Association of America, I can't think of bigger hypocrites in this situation because I know what the promoters do. I know what Eddie Hearn's about. These people who think it's a flex, showing that video of Eddie Hearn talking 2 weeks ago and saying, why would the fight go forward if a fighter tests positive for VADA and then 2 weeks later somebody doing something completely opposite? It's not a flex. Hypocrisy does not stick to promoters and managers. They don't care. Eddie Hearn doesn't care that the video's out there. He doesn't care. He's just trying to get the fight through. Hypocrisy doesn't stick to them. They're liars. They're snakes. As I've said in the past, we shouldn't feel sorry for any of them. They're all snakes. They're all going to lie to you in your face. As Bob Arum once famously said, I was lying to you yesterday. I'm telling the truth today. We don't know when they're lying. We don't know when they're telling the truth. We don't know how many fighters on this card on Saturday are actually juicing and how many aren't. We just know Conor Benn didn't cycle off properly. He missed the cycle timing. Somebody on his team messed up the timing, and he still had this stuff in the system. And I guarantee you, those are the conversations happening behind the scenes. The conversations happening behind the scenes are not, oh, a new precedent is set. They canceled the fight, and we need to do that going forward for the betterment of the sport. That's not what's happening. The conversations that are happening behind the scenes are the people responsible for putting on fights are talking to their fighters off the record and saying, this stuff right here and the other stuff you're using, the EPOs, all that stuff, everything used to shade it, you make sure you cycle off of this well before now. Conor Benn messed up. He dropped the bag. The whole card is off. Nobody's getting paid. We can't have that happen on our card. So you make sure you cycle off of this. You make sure you cycle off of this beforehand. That way we don't have this on our card. I guarantee you, everybody's reaching out to their fighters and saying, be careful with this. Cycle off at the right time. Do not use the same guy, the same mad scientist that Conor Benn used. The conversations are not, don't use this stuff. The conversations are not, oh, we need to clean up the sport. We need to be for the betterment of the sport. Behind the scenes, all the conversations being had, I'm telling you, are cycle off. Don't be a dummy. Cycle off in time. Don't mess up your cycle schedule. Do people really think that Conor Benn is the only dirty fighter that was fighting this weekend? Do people really believe that? I don't know what else to do with this, man, but my suggestion to boxing fans is this: look out for your own self-interest. The journalists are not going to look out for yourself, look out for your interests as a boxing fan. We have nobody. We are out here in the wilderness alone. We're alone out here. My suggestion to you is stop listening to the dude who brought you into the middle of the wilderness. And the whole time you thought you were going north, but his compass said south. Why would you continue to trust his compass? They've all led us astray. Make your demands as a boxing fan and stand on them. Demand to be entertained. Every single weekend I get on here, and it goes back to the Boxing Writers Association of America. And Calix, don't burn bridges, don't burn bridges. We know people in the BWA. All I'm saying, man, is these dudes are such frauds as an organization. They're out here virtue signaling, oh, we did the right thing here. They're patting themselves on the back like they're contorting themselves into all different, all kind of angles. That way they can S their own D's. And all the while, every single weekend, a big prospect gets on a card and beats the living daylights, the living hell out of a dude who is so much of an underdog that they don't even price it on the betting odds. And I'm supposed to trust that these dudes are going to look out and be watchdogs for fighter safety. Every single weekend, not only did they ignore it, they praise it. Look at how great this prospect looks. You guys know how dogfighting works. You know how it works. I'm from the South, so have had friends in it. Unfortunately, it's savage. It's brutal. It's horrible. They're dogs. They're pets, but they get these pit bulls, and how they raise these pit bulls into dog fighting pit bulls and breed them this way is they go to the SPCA, they find a small dog, or they have one, they find one, or they even dog nap it from people, small dogs, bring them home, tape their mouths shut, and they call them bait dogs. And they just sit them there in a garage or something and have the pit bull go to town on the little bait dog to prepare them to fight for a pit bull, which I don't know how that prepares them to fight a pit bull. Beating up on a little dog with its mouth shut, but that's what they do. We have a resemblance of that in the boxing culture. Every single weekend, I tune into these undercards and I see a prospect beat the living daylights out of some Uber driver off the street or some homeless guy. So much of a mismatch that it's not even on my betting card. And these writers, these commentators praise these fighters for, oh, he beat the hell out of that guy in a minute. And I'm asking myself, he just beat a nobody. How am I going to read anything off of that? And on top of that, how is that getting him ready for the future? Beating some dude who can't defend himself. I'm watching this top rank card last month, and this isn't just top rank. This is everywhere. But I'm just using this card as an example because it's the best one to use. And I'm watching this card. Prospect after prospect, that white heavyweight coming up, I forget his name. He beat the living hell out of this dude. And I'm like, how in the hell is this dude in the ring? Who sanctioned this? Who sanctioned this monstrosity? And this is getting him ready for what? What's it getting ready for? And at least they used to do this when they were building fighters up quickly, and they got through that process quickly. But I'm seeing dudes 5-6 years in still doing this. And on top of that, I'm seeing main event cards when I'm looking at my betting odds where dudes are minus 2,000, minus 3,000, minus 5,000 favorites. And I'm like, who's paying attention to this? Where did the fighter safety guys go? Where did they go? Where are they? Where'd they go? Where'd the fighter safety guys go? What's worse for fighter safety? A slight underdog testing positive for a female infertility drug, possibly being on EPO, not possibly, likely, almost certainly being on EPO and other things, and this is being used to shade it. I get it. I get that this stuff is bad. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying PEDs are not bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is every single weekend, we got guys beating the living hell out of dudes who have no business being in the ring with them. And then we praise these fighters after they do it. And then the next day we get on Twitter and virtue signal that we care about fighter safety. No. Salute everyone listening from work. I remember when they killed Method Man's pit on the wire. That they did. That they did. And that's what they do, by the way. But my ultimate point is these dudes who are out there the most vocal, and it's always the most vocal ones. They're on Twitter right now. They're over there on Twitter right now. They're being vocal, claiming this huge victory and precedent is being set here. They're not going to be able to hold up to this standard that they've set for themselves. It's not possible. It's not possible. Every single year they vote, the BWAA votes for the Hall of Fame. Every single year they vote in dudes who are known drug cheats. Every year. Boxing Hall of Fame is littered with dudes who cheated. Littered with dudes who were not good for fighter safety. And they were voted in by these same writers who are claiming some sort of moral and virtuous victory, who for some reason decided to draw a line in the sand when it came to Conor Benn. And all I'm saying as a boxing fan is, you dudes ruined my fight. I don't feel bad saying it. Because I know I was asking the same questions a decade ago. And you know what the big story here is? That these genius journalists are missing. These wizards of smart that everybody looks up to. The big story is sitting right in their face when it comes to this. And they're missing it. If we had real journalists in the sport, they would be asking this question. When did the BBBOC know about this? When did they know? It's the same question I was asking a decade ago. And I hate to keep bringing this up because it's not like, I don't want people to think I'm bragging. This story fell in our lap. But when we broke the Morales story and I called the New York State Athletic Commission for an official statement for our story, they said they didn't know. And I said, like, did they not tell you? Did they not know? Our official statement is, we're not talking. We don't know anything about it. So I went out to the big-time boxing journalists on Twitter and said, somebody might want to follow up on this. Somebody follow up on this. Find out if they weren't told by the PBC or if they were involved in covering this thing up. Follow up. These wizards of smart in journalists and boxing journalism, the people that we're supposed to entrust with this huge task of cleaning up the sport of boxing. Because all of a sudden we're for fighter safety, even though we watch every single weekend these human bait dogs get beat up on by prospects. And now we're seeing co-main events, main events where guys are minus 3,000 favorites. Caleb Plant next weekend is a minus 1,250 favorite against a dude who's pushing 40 years old. And you got boxing journalists out there saying, oh, it's a good fight. It's a good fight. And we're supposed to entrust them with fighter safety. Mismatches after mismatches after mismatches after beatdown after beatdown after beatdown. BWAA writers who say that for the betterment of this sport and they want a clean sport, but they're voting fighters in who were known drug cheats. Did they boycott the Canelo fights? Did they boycott the Oscar Valdez fight after he popped against Conceição and then he fought months later against Shakur Stevenson? No, they covered it. They covered it. Luis Ortiz just fought in a pay-per-view. Headlined. They covered it. They covered it. But now they want to virtue signal and draw lines in the sand. But what they could be doing is making themselves useful because there's a story out there that they're ignoring and they're purposely ignoring it. It could be two things. It could be journalism is dead, not just in boxing, and it's easier to just get on there with your Twitter fingers and virtue signal instead of actually going out there and doing real journalism work. And you know what the real journalism work here is? It's like I said a decade ago, what I was telling these writers. I talked to the New York State Athletic Commission. Their official statement is they don't know anything about Eric Morales testing positive, even though he tested positive weeks ago. There's your story. Go after it. None of them went after it because they didn't want to lose their credentials. Now, the BBBOC says they're not sanctioning the fight 3 days before the fight, even though the A sample we know has been out there. So did Eddie Hearn not tell him about it? Or did the BBBOC know when Eddie Hearn knew? And they've been sleeping on it, sitting on it as well. There's your story. And if you're a real journalist, you would be knocking on the door of the BBBOC headquarters. You can easily find their address on Google. You can easily find their numbers. You can easily find their emails. And you're hitting them up, and you're hitting them up, and you're hitting them up until they have to come out and make a statement. And if they refuse to make a statement, they refuse to make a statement, but at least you can consistently, continuously get them on the record as not making a statement. and you call them hypocrites, but you find out who's to blame here. You find out, are the BBBOC frauds? Were they just virtue signaling here? Were they just canceling the fight as the A sample was reported, even though they knew about it? Or did they not know about it? And then you have a story there. You have a huge story there to go after Eddie Hearn with. Eddie Hearn knew about this and he didn't tell the BBBOC. It's a pretty big story. Also a pretty big story if Eddie told them and they sat on it as a commission. Pretty big story. I don't want to tell these journalists how to do their job because they're geniuses. I want to tell them. But what I'm advising you to do, and I'll continue to come back to this because it's my philosophy on this channel. Whether 350 people watch the podcast or 3,500, it's going to continue to be my philosophy here is I'm a regular dude, regular boxing fan talking to other regular boxing fans. Not talking above you, not talking through you. I'm talking with you. Nobody is looking out for our interests as boxing fans. Nobody. The journalists aren't. Sure as hell, the promoters, managers, network execs, and fighters aren't. They've got their own system that they built that has failed us. As George Carlin once famously said, there's a system and you ain't in it. And we ain't in it. So what do? We continue to unashamedly and unabashedly demand that we get good fights every weekend. So it's foreign to me. It's foreign to me when other fans celebrate an even matchup getting canceled, a whole card getting canceled over something that is going to continue to happen. Nobody's going to look out for us, fellas. Nobody. Not a damn person in this sport. You got to look out for your own interests. I'm not going to apologize for saying I wanted Conor Benn versus Eubank Jr. to go on. This was easy. This was a salvageable fight. It's a salvageable fight. Let me ask you a question. When Chris Eubank Jr. found out that Conor Benn tested positive, what do you think his reaction was? Do you think his reaction was shock and, oh my God, I can't believe he's cheating the sport like this? Oh, no. It might be what he's saying publicly, but that's not what happened. His reaction was, got him. And his reaction was that because the precedent in the past has been, you still go along with the fight and you go out there and you get concessions and your team beats the hell out of them with the concessions. 157 goes away. We're fighting at 160 now. Rehydration clause goes away. I'm the bigger fighter. I want smaller gloves. I want a smaller ring. And you're going to come off of 250. You're going to come off of 200,000, 250,000. I'm going to get richer off this fight. And you're going to take it because you're in a tough spot. Shakur Stevenson weighs in almost 2 pounds over the official limit. The fight still goes on. As I said yesterday, one of the greatest thinkers of the past century, Thomas Sowell, said, yes, yesterday's solutions are today's problems. You're causing other problems with your solutions, and we're doing the same thing with drug testing today. This is an arms race. We're in an arms race, fellas. These mad scientists are out there building nuclear weapons, concoctions of PEDs, EPOs, all kind of crazy stuff and shades behind it to cover it up, and the drug testing can't keep up with it. Even VADA testing. And the people praising VADA testing, it's the best testing out there. Don't get me wrong, but they're acting like this is some sort of miracle that's going to solve all problems, and it's just not. And a lot of people telling you this are tied into VADA financially. What I'm telling you is the testing cannot keep up with the PEDs. It can't. And I've been told this for a decade, and why I'm not trying to help them solve this problem anyway, because it's not my problem anyway. I'm a boxing fan. None of this is my issue. None of it's my issue. And I'm not going to help them, try to help them solve this problem because it's not my problem. I got my own jobs. I got my own things to do. Let them figure it out. Let them figure it out. But what I'm saying here is there are big issues with boxing, huge issues with boxing. Every single week I get on here and talk about the mismatches, the fighter inactivity. I talked yesterday about, if you look at 1997, you look at the top 10 Ring Magazine pound for pound fighters in the world, they fought a combined 28 times. 28 times. Oscar De La Hoya himself was Ring Magazine pound for pound fighter of the year in 1997, and he fought 5 times that year. This year, the top 10 Ring Magazine pound for pound fighters in the world are on pace to fight 9 times. I'll repeat that again. The top 10 Ring Magazine pound for pound fighters in the world of 2022 currently are on pace to fight 9 times this calendar year. Less than 1 time on average per fighter for the year. Less than 33% of the volume and activity of the fighters 25 years ago. And y'all are up here rested up on PEDs. Not saying it's not a huge issue. Just saying we got bigger ones. Especially as fans, we got bigger ones to fight. How am I supposed to follow a sport that isn't giving me top fighters fighting? Not fighting each other, just fighting period. How am I supposed to follow that? You expect me to sit here and worry about PEDs when there's no way for us to possibly know who's on them and who isn't? The testing just isn't there. It never will be. They're out there saying Aaron Judge is the real home run king. There was never a pure era in baseball. I'll repeat that. Roger Maris Jr. was competing against 9% black players, 7% Latin American players. And his grandson is out there saying that Aaron Judge is the real home run king, as if there was ever a pure era in baseball. Babe Ruth played against 100% white dudes. Barry Bonds, I don't care if his head grew 5 sizes over. He was competing against pitchers who were also juicing. And 40% of his at-bats that year were either home runs or walks. The most incredible sports stat I've ever seen in my life. But I'm supposed to know if Aaron Judge is juicing or not. How many baseball players are still juicing? What I'm telling you is stop being naive. Maybe you do still think that the Easter Bunny is real. I don't know. But do you really believe? Do you really believe that Conor Benn was the only fighter on that card who was dirty? And as boxing fans, look out for your own self-interest. Look out for your own interests. We have bigger problems than PEDs as boxing fans. And the big one is fighter inactivity. How are we supposed to follow a sport when dudes just simply aren't fighting? Do you know Conor Benn was the only welterweight with anything planned? I went over it yesterday. Terrence Crawford's not fighting in 2022. Errol Spence isn't fighting again in 2022. Ugas isn't fighting again in 2022. When's Stanionis fighting? When's Virgil Ortiz fighting? When's Boots Ennis fighting again? Boots Ennis has worked 4 minutes this year. And I'm supposed to worry about PEDs? The only welterweight that had something going on the schedule, y'all are cheering because his fight is canceled. He was the only welterweight doing something, like physically doing something on the schedule for the rest of the year. And you want me to cheer for that to be canceled? Over something that I know y'all aren't going to follow up on. I know it. The boxing writers, they're not going to stay consistent with that. If you learn one thing from this podcast today, the boxing writers out there celebrating this, acting virtuous as if they did something for fighter safety, in the name of fighter safety, they ain't doing nothing. They didn't do anything before. I learned this a decade ago. They ain't going to do anything going forward. Nothing. They're just out there virtue signaling. They canceled the fight. That's all they did. They canceled the fight card. That's all they did. They didn't set any kind of precedent. They're not going to follow up on this. They're going to continue to vote in drug cheats to the Boxing Hall of Fame. They're going to continue to cover fighters in the future who have already been popped. They're going to continue to look the other way as fighters get beat down in mismatches every single weekend in the boxing world. You're going to see it again this weekend. Just go watch the Fundora Ocampo card. Go watch it. Watch any card. Watch the card next weekend on pay-per-view. Go watch these cards. Go watch the prospects coming up. They're going to beat the living hell out of some dude just rolling up out the street. Oh, but Calix, they signed up for that. Yeah, they signed up for that. What was their other option if they want to continue boxing? Go make $100 at some local card that after taxes and paying their trainer, they get to keep like 40 of it? Or do they go on ESPN and fight on an undercard and at least get seen, knowing that they're going to lose in a minute or two, but at least they get $1,000, $2,000 paycheck out of it, a free hotel room. They get to meet some famous fighters in the process. This is the perks that they're given in order to be bait dogs. That's what they signed up for, Calix. Everybody knows what's going on behind the scenes. Everybody, including the writers out there virtue signaling currently on Twitter. They know. They know. And they know they're not going to be able to keep up with this precedent. They know it. But they got their virtue signaling in. They know people are going to forget about it next week. And when the next one comes around, they're going to virtue signal again. All in the meantime, in between that, what are they going to do? They're going to ignore mismatch, 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 mismatch. Minus 2,000, minus 5,000, minus 10,000. Not even on the betting odds, not even on the betting board because it's prospect versus Uber driver. And they're going to watch a sanctioned beatdown. If they really wanted to clean up the sport, you know it's easier. If they wanted more equity and equality in the sport, because we talked yesterday about how this drug testing has taken us away from that, in my opinion, further away from it. Because what happens in this case? The rich fighters, the wealthy fighters, the top fighters, they hire their mad scientists who tell them this in detail. This is when you take this, is when you take that. And Conor Benn's team mistimed it and made a mistake. That's why they got caught. But these other fighters, this when you do this when you do that, this is what you do. That's when you take that. And they hire these guys for 6 figures and have these guys on retainer for when they need to call them. And they get around, they skate around the drug testing because they have the money to do it. All the while, the poor fighters don't have this. The poor fighters can't get around the drug testing. Oh, Calix, they shouldn't agree to the VADA test. VADA testing, USADA testing, VADA is better than USADA. I get it. But I've been told by reliable people who know about this stuff that even with VADA, you have to be dumb or careless to get caught. It hasn't caught up and it never will. It's an arms race. These guys are constantly in the lab creating things that get around the drug testing. The drug testing will never catch up to it. So what I'm saying is not only not my job to keep up with such things as a boxing fan. It's my job to look out for my own interests. I leave that to the journalists who will fail us, continue to fail us in that aspect. But it's an incurable problem anyway. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But in my opinion, it could take us further away from equality because the poor fighters can't hire these dudes in order to get around the drug testing. So the poor fighters aren't taking the stuff. The wealthy fighters are, and we get a wider gap. which is the opposite of the intended consequences, which is what happens, right? It's what happens when we deal with intellectual people. They take us further away from their intended consequences. And for whatever reason, we still go to them, even though they've abandoned us in the wilderness. Corruption from top to bottom in every single aspect of the sport, from the journalists to the managers to the promoters to the network execs to the fighters, top to bottom. So my job as a fan is to look out for my own interests. I understand what I signed myself up for. I understand what I got myself into. I understand that I'm going to watch beatdowns, mismatches. I get all that. I'm the one demanding that we don't have that. I'm the one on here demanding that we get even matchups, that we don't have prospects beating up Uber drivers, because that's not good for anybody. Maybe give those guys 2 or 3, but at that point, the commissions have to step in and say, I can't continue to watch this dude just beat people up off the street. I can't do it. So maybe we get, if we want to really fix fighter safety, we really care about fighter safety, there's an easier way. We get odds makers involved with the commissions and say, if this fight was on the board, this guy would be a minus 20,000 favorite. Can't do it. I understand he's a prospect. I understand you want him to catch a body. We can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. And it goes back to getting away from our intended consequences. They told us that fighter activity was bad for the fighters, right? It's bad for fighters to fight 3-4 times a year, yet they have these dudes fighting once, twice per year, and they have them in 12-week training camps, where the sparring is worse for them with 16-ounce gloves, repeated head trauma. It's worse for them than them being in the ring under the lights, getting paid for it, fighting with 8-ounce gloves. It's the wizards of smart in this sport, the intellectuals, right? It's frustrating to watch, man. And like I said yesterday, I want to take a different, more positive approach to this channel going forward. So the past few days have been negative again, but I don't know what else to do. As I said yesterday, you got 90% of the welterweight division with nothing scheduled. You got 70% of them undefeated, and people think that that's a good thing. And then you got the only dude in the welterweight division testing positive for a female infertility drug. It perfectly sums up where we are. And you got some dummies on Twitter saying this is the golden age of boxing. And you got some dummies on Twitter saying that this is the most talented era of boxing. Really? Where's it at? Where's it at? Where is it? More athletic? That doesn't equal more talent. It doesn't equal better fighter. I say that about basketball all the time. I see these kids dribbling between cones. They have their own personal coaches. They have a shooting coach. They have a dribbling coach. They have a basketball coach. They have all these specialties, but I'm looking at them like, when are they playing actual basketball? They're dribbling between cones. They're doing shooting drills. How many of them are actually playing basketball? Not AAU basketball. Like, how many of them are actually playing real basketball? They're more athletic, maybe more skilled, but where's the basketball playing? Are they better basketball players than in the 80s and the 90s? And I say that about boxing as well. They have all these specialties. But are these guys actually in the ring on a consistent basis, honing their skills, proving their talent? Where's it at? But once again, I'm being negative. And I'll leave you with this, man. Like, as a boxing fan, it's not our job to sanction, look after performance-enhancing drug cheats. Not our job. It's not our job to be up in arms about it. It's not our job to virtue signal about it. Not our job. We have bigger problems as boxing fans. The fighters are going to speak out for their own interests. Let them. Let them. The journalists are going to be out there virtue signaling. Let them. The promoters are going to try to sweep this stuff under the rug. The managers will as well. They're all going to look out for their own interests. What I'm telling you is look out for your own as well. And don't let them shame you. Don't let them propagandize you into thinking like them. I don't get paid to do that. Don't get paid for it. My job requirements as a boxing fan is to sign up for the apps, sign up for the subscriptions for the networks, sit my tall, happy ass in front of the TV on Saturday night, tune into the card. That way I'm counted as watching the fight. I go out, plane tickets, hotel tickets, fight tickets, support my favorite fighters, support the fighters that I like. It's my job as a boxing fan. It's not my job to regulate whatever y'all got going on right here. Whatever this monstrosity that y'all got going on right here is not my job. And I'm not going to feel guilty in saying that. I wanted to watch Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn even after the positive test. Let them figure it out. Everybody on that card wanted to fight. The promoter still wanted to fight, but the BBB OC, who may have known about this weeks ago, had to go out and cancel the card. And the journalists are out there cheering it, yay, 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 because that's what they do. But as boxing fans, don't get caught up in that. As boxing fans, as a boxing fan, I want to be entertained. And I'm not going to feel bad about that. And it keeps me more consistent because in not caring about that, I don't have to care about this. I care for my own interests as a boxing fan. The journalists are once again boxing themselves into a tough corner that it's not going to matter anyway, because like I said, a week from now, everybody's going to forget anyway. But they all of a sudden care about fighter safety. And then this weekend and the next weekend and the next weekend, they're not even going to bat an eye when a prospect beats the hell out of a dude off the street who, if there was betting odds, the favorite would have been a minus 50,000 favorite. They're not going to bat an eye. And not a single one of them knows how many of those fighters on that card on Saturday that would have went on are actually juicing and how many aren't. I don't know. We'll never find out. And none of them have real life solutions to this problem. None of them. Not a one of them. They think they're setting some kind of precedent. They ain't set nothing. They just canceled the card. That's all they did. They didn't set a single precedent because none of them are going to live up to this standard that they just enacted today. None of them. From the journalists on up to the promoters to the commissions, none of them. They're not going to be able to live up to this standard. So we're boxing fans. We just worry about being entertained. And for me, it's easy to stay consistent in this because I know none of them are going to do anything about this. None of them. None of them are going to stay consistent. None of them are going to do anything about this. I was screaming from the mountaintops about all this stuff a decade ago. This stuff Eddie Hearn was talking about 2 weeks ago, I said a decade ago. What's the point of drug testing if all it's doing is stopping fights from being made? And then when a fighter actually pops for a positive test, the fight still goes on anyway. And on top of that, the fighter just makes some lame excuse. Everybody forgets about it. He goes into the Hall of Fame. What's the point? What are we doing? What are we doing? What's the point of that other than virtue signaling? It's going to be the same thing here. And in 2032, a decade from now, we'll be sitting here on YouTube or Rumble or Elon Musk run Twitter, and we'll be talking about the same thing when some poor dude gets some bad advice about when to cycle off and he tests positive, and we'll be doing the same thing a decade from now. I guarantee you. Nothing's going to change. So my advice for you as a boxing fan is to stop worrying about it and demand your damn fights happen. On that note, I'll be back tomorrow. Sebastian Fundora, betting odds. See y'all in. God bless. Peace.